Chapter 1981. His luck couldn't be this bad, right? Sha Gua blankly held that number 3. After looking at it carefully for a few seconds, he realized that the number 3 was still the same number 3. It didn't move at all. Sha Gua was really about to cry. What was going on? Why did the heavens play such a joke on him? He didn't want to draw Miss Chow's team at all. Such a savage girl, what sin had he committed to meet her? Seeing Sha Gua look like he was about to faint, everyone couldn't help but feel curious. They sized him up a few more times. Someone familiar with him couldn't help but laugh and call out, "Sha Gua, what's up? You have this weird expression on your face. Your team is quite lucky." After all, the top academies weren't famous academies, and weren't among the top few academies. For this kind of unknown small academy, Hippo Academy was naturally a piece of cake. Advancing wasn't a problem. Who would have guessed? Hippo Academy's team leader, Sha Gua, looked at the onlookers with an accusing gaze and shouted indignantly, "What do you guys know?" This group of onlookers simply didn't mind watching a show. He was about to die from anxiety, all right? He didn't expect that they would be eliminated in the third round of the semifinals. It was really too early. Aber curiously sized up Hippo Academy's team leader, Sha Gua, before turning around and stomping down the stage. Just as he returned to the seating area, he saw the main referee, Elder Hong, walk up the stage with a smile and announce, "Everyone, the highly anticipated third round of the semifinals is about to begin. Before this, a team has chosen to publicly issue a challenge to battle and learn from each other." The entire audience was in an uproar. Many of the onlookers who didn't know the situation started to howl excitedly. As Elder Hong's voice fell, Gu Lioli led Zhao Li and the others up the stage, receiving everyone's attention. Flying Flower Academy, as the challenger of this competition, will have a fair battle with the top academies. Elder Hong extended his hand and gestured, "Let's invite the students of the top academies up the stage." Amidst the enthusiastic applause, Duanmu Qing led the other 7 people from the top academies up the stage with a cold expression. "The competition will begin immediately." Elder Hong turned the hourglass upside down and said with a smile, "The competition will start in 1 hour." Zhao Li from the Flying Flower Academy was the first to fly towards Aber with his fists raised. The wind from his fists whistled as they swept across. Aber didn't even look at him as he dodged to the side. At that moment, Duanmu Qing and Qi Xianxian surrounded him. Each of them sent out a wave of spiritual energy towards Zhao Li's face. Both sides had used their killing moves. After being hit by Duanmu and Xianxian's attacks, even if the unlucky Zhao Li did not die, he would at least lose half his life. Zhao Li roared angrily. With a stomp of his foot, he immediately summoned his profound beast. That Xian beast looked a little like a cow, but it did not have horns on its head. It looked very ferocious, and it bit towards Qi Xuanxuan's forearm. Qi Xuanxuan's expression did not change and her heart did not skip a beat. With a wave of her hand, she released her golden lion. The golden lion was very ferocious. It opened its mouth and bit Zhao Li's leg, tearing off a piece of his flesh. Zhao Li was in so much pain that he fell to the ground and rolled around, crying out in pain. Gu Lioli's eyes were filled with anger. She raised her sword and fiercely slashed towards Qi Xianxian. "You dare to use such a vicious move?" Chapter 1982. What a joke. They had already issued a challenge, so of course they had to treat it seriously. Who would throw the match for no good reason? What do you mean by vicious? Qi Xianxian glanced at Gu Lioli and shook her head with a smile. "That was your team member who released the mystical beasts first. Since it's a battle between beasts, then it's easy to handle. Isn't it reasonable to let the beasts fight among themselves?" Quibble. Before Gu Lioli could finish her sentence, she felt the wind from a palm strike towards her face. Gu Lioli was furious, and she rolled on the ground to avoid the palm strike. She looked up and saw the little girl's cold face, looking at her with a frosty expression. Gu Lioli held her breath, and a wave of wood spiritual energy appeared in her hand, which she slapped towards the ground. However, Brambles and thorns burrowed out from the ground and shot straight for Qiao Mu, enveloping her body. Screech! The cry of an ancient phoenix appeared in the air above the stage. Whoosh! A raging flame shot out, and the entire center of the stage was set ablaze by the flames. Gu Liuli and Zhao Li's two mystical beasts were surrounded in the center of the flames. They clutched their heads in panic, not daring to look up at the ancient bloodfire phoenix. What a joke! That was an ancient sacred beast, okay? In front of a sacred beast, these two mystical beasts weren't even enough to fill the gaps between its teeth. Wah wah wah, wasn't Master too awesome? She actually offended an ancient sacred beast. At this moment, Gu Liuli was probably stunned as well. She was crawling on the ground, not moving at all. Abba flipped its hand and slapped the ground with a wave of wood spiritual energy. One after another, the man-eating flowers transformed from wood spirits rapidly opened their sawtooth mouths, sweeping towards Gu Liuli and Zhao Li. Roar! A ferocious beast jumped out from behind Zhao Li. It opened its mouth and swallowed the few man-eating flowers transformed from the wood spirits. Then, it threw Gu Liuli and Zhao Li onto its back and jumped up with all its strength. Bang! Qi Xue instantly transformed into his human form. He raised his foot and kicked the back of the ferocious beast from the sky, smashing the unlucky fellow to the ground. The human form of the phoenix was very delicate and beautiful. It looked like a 12 or 13-year-old youth, wrapped in a scarlet robe. It had red lips, white teeth, sword-like eyebrows, and bright eyes. Its eyes looked left and right, and with a whoosh, it landed beside its little master. Master, do you want to swallow these little shrimps? These things wouldn't even be enough to fill the gaps between his teeth. Qiao Mu silently glanced at him and didn't say anything, but she was ridiculing him in her heart. Although there might be a few deaths during the competition, there shouldn't be much of a problem. But if you're like you, swallowing all the other team members in one go, that would definitely be a big deal. Master, Qi Xue pointed Zhao Li. Master, Qi Xue, Master. When the latter saw his finger pointing at him, he was so frightened that he wanted to shrink back into a crack in the ground. He was so frightened that his teeth were slightly shaking and chattering. Seeing his frightened appearance, Qi Xue couldn't help but snort disdainfully. Suddenly turning its head, it transformed into its phoenix true form and roared at Zhao Li. Zhao Li was so frightened that he crawled back a few steps, covering his head and shrieking. That ugly appearance really made everyone in the seating area gasp in amazement. Ah, don't kill me, don't kill me. Chapter 1983. Zhao Li rolled on the ground and hid behind the Flying Flower Academy's crowd. He screamed, Liuli, Liuli. Gu Liuli hurriedly flew in front of him and shouted angrily at Auber, using a sacred beast to bully others, can this still be considered a fair competition? Miss Qiao leisurely looked at her and nodded, wealth is also a part of strength. There was nothing wrong with what she said. Hearing this, Gu Liuli's face darkened, but she couldn't do anything else. The little girl was arrogant, but what she said wasn't wrong at all. This competition didn't forbid mystical beasts from participating. Since it was able to participate in the battle, the strength of the Xian beast would inevitably become the key to whether the master could win or not. Gu Liuli could only blame herself for being inferior to others. If she relied on her own strength, she might not lose. Blazing blood, I'll leave it to you. The blazing blood fire phoenix cried out proudly. Its wings flapped slightly, and it rushed towards Zhao Li on the ground. Seeing that Zhao Li was about to be seriously injured by the blazing blood fire phoenix's flames, Gu Liuli shouted angrily and flung out the cloak on her body to meet the flames. Everyone saw that the black cloak flying in the air was burned into charcoal by the blazing blood fire phoenix's flames. The blazing blood fire phoenix was enraged. It screeched at Gu Liuli and circled in the air before swooping down. A line of fire shot out from its mouth towards Gu Liuli and Zhao Li. With a whoosh, Gu Liuli and Zhao Li were trapped in a circle of fire. They stood with their backs against each other, and their faces instantly stiffened. The blazing blood fire phoenix flapped its wings and circled in the air, preparing to kill the two of them in one breath. The Flying Flower Academy's teachers couldn't watch any longer. They jumped up from their seats and screamed, "Everyone, stop! Our Flying Flower Academy admits defeat." The Flying Flower Academy students all looked emaciated. Under the ancient blazing blood fire phoenix's pressure, they almost couldn't breathe. They didn't expect that there would be such a perverted student in a top academy. She even summoned a sacred beast for the competition. This was a battle on a completely different level, okay? Qi Xianxian couldn't help but laugh. She shook her head and said, "You don't even know the other party's strength, yet you dare to casually issue a challenge. Forgive her for not being able to agree with such behavior." Of the 12 students from the Soaring Flower Academy, more than half of them were being chased by the blazing blood fire phoenix. As for the remaining few, Duanmu Qing and the others were more than capable of dealing with them. They didn't even need to summon their Xian beasts, they could just directly attack. In the entire arena, only the miserable cries of the Flying Flower Academy students could be heard. The people in the seating area simply could not bear to look straight at them. Was this the legendary challenge to get beaten up in the arena? When the Soaring Flower Academy's instructor saw that the students from the top academies were not stopping, he couldn't help but turn to glare angrily at Zhou Danjin, Wei Wei, and the others. "Quickly tell your students to stop. It's just a competition. Don't tell me you want to kill someone?" Zhou Danjin rolled his eyes at him. "Stop it. What's the use of you screaming and admitting defeat outside the arena? Your students haven't admitted defeat yet. Liuli, don't force yourself. Quickly admit defeat." Gu Liuli only felt a trace of suppressed grief and indignation flash past her heart. Just because her background was inferior to the other party, she deserved to be humiliated like this? She was born a commoner, and her family background was far from those large and medium aristocratic families. That lady who could casually summon the ancient blazing blood fire phoenix was definitely a lady from some large family. Chapter 1984. There was almost no doubt about this. Only the well-known aristocratic families in the upper 3 prefectures could possibly have the existence of a saint beast guarding a house. The little girl's family background was definitely several hundred times better than Zhao Li's. Otherwise, it would be impossible for her to have such wealth to support her, to be able to casually summon a sacred beast. Gu Liuli resisted the blazing flames as she quickly calculated in her mind. Which aristocratic family in the upper 3 prefectures had an ancient bloodfire phoenix as a guardian? No matter how she thought about it, she couldn't come up with a logical answer. Meanwhile, Zhao Li's leg had already been spat out a mouthful of flames by the bloodfire phoenix. He was rolling back and forth on the ground, wailing in pain. "Stop, stop!" Gu Liuli screamed. Our Soaring Flower Academy admits defeat." Gu Liuli heaved a sigh of relief in her heart. At this moment, she even felt as if she had survived a disaster. Thinking back to when she had issued the battle invitation, she hadn't issued a life and death invitation. Her heart couldn't help but pound. Luckily, everything could be salvaged. If she had issued a life and death invitation, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Arbor didn't intend to make things difficult for them. Hearing Gu Liuli's call to stop, he waved his hand at the bloodfire phoenix. The ancient phoenix cried out and swooped down, excitedly flying towards its little master's side. When it rushed in front of Arbor, the enormous pressure of the phoenix had already completely disappeared. A scarlet little bird chirped a few times, cutely landing on Arbor's arm. It stood on its claws and flapped its little wings twice. After taking 2 steps, it jumped onto Arbor's shoulder. Everyone from Soaring Flower Academy was dumbstruck. It was hard to imagine that such a cute little thing was the huge creature that had chased after them and set them on fire, causing them so much pain that they wished they were dead. The little fellow raised its hand and stroked the phoenix's feathers. Only then did it raise its eyes to look at Gu Liuli. It glanced at her indifferently before turning to Duanmu Qing and the others. "Let's go." Since the other party had admitted defeat, there was naturally nothing left to say. It was originally a hilarious battle with a great disparity in strength. Arbor didn't really think that he would have to kill these people. It was originally just a few words. Since the other party had issued the battle invitation, they naturally had to accept it. Otherwise, they would be cowards. Now that the matter was settled, Auber didn't want to stay in the ring any longer. They turned around and were about to jump off the ring. Screams could be heard from the seating area. Instructor Zhou shouted angrily, "How dare you!" Several instructors from top academies had already flown into the arena. Xiao Mu coldly glanced at him from the corner of her eye, only to see Zhao Li, that guy, release a venomous snake from his sleeve. It abruptly jolted in midair and opened its mouth to bite at her back. Auber sneered coldly. Her left wrist shook slightly, and the little white snake coiled around her wrist like a bracelet flew out with a whoosh. A pair of watery eyes flashed with anger. She opened her mouth, and the little snake head suddenly turned into a huge shadow. With a bang, it swallowed the poisonous snake that was flying over. Ah! Gu Lioli and the others screamed. The white snake's huge head was already in front of the panic-stricken Zhao Li. He simply couldn't dodge in time. The upper half of Zhao Li's body was bitten by the huge snake. His two legs struggled outside for a moment before the lower half of his body and the upper half of his body completely disintegrated. Ah! The arena was filled with piercing screams. Everyone's eyes were filled with blood. They were all completely shocked by the bloody scene in front of them. Make up for yesterday's 2 chapters. Yesterday's 10,000 chapters ended. Today's 10,000 chapters, around midnight. Chapter 1985. Ah! Gu Lioli screamed. Her eyes were filled with disbelief as she stared at Zhao Li, who only had half of his body left and was thrown on the stage like trash. Savage, wild, bloodthirsty. Her eyes were filled with blood, and she was trembling uncontrollably. Kill, kill. You killed Zhao Li. Ah! Murder. Zhao Li is dead. Murder. A few of the Flying Flower Academy students were so scared that they almost lost their minds. The main thing was that the scene in front of them was too terrifying. Half of it had been swallowed alive by a giant snake. This Zhao Li, just how much bad luck did he have in this lifetime to end up in such a state where his corpse was buried? Would the Zhao family people let this matter go? Gu Lioli and the rest were so frightened that their teeth chattered. Zhao Li's father, the head of the Zhao family, won't let you off. Gu Lioli trembled all over, almost not daring to look at the half of the body on the ground. The giant snake's head circled around in front of everyone before retracting back with a whoosh. It circled around Auber's left arm once again, quietly not moving at all. Gu Lioli and the rest's gazes fell on Auber's wrist. If they looked at it like this, who would know that the white jade bracelet on the little girl's wrist was actually a vicious beast? Too terrifying. Everyone's hearts were shaken to the extreme. The large seating area of over 10,000 spectators was silent at this moment. Auber coldly swept a glance at Gu Lioli. Zhou Danjin, Wei Wei and the other instructors had also rushed to Auber's side at this moment. When the Flying Flower Academy's instructor hurried to the stage, he fiercely glared at Zhou Danjin and the rest and angrily reprimanded, Your top academy actually dared to kill our students in public on the stage? I demand that you take responsibility for this matter to the end." "Take responsibility for what?" Zhou Danjin's face darkened as he angrily retorted, "Sneak attacking from the back and assassinating in the dark. Now that your skills are inferior and you're killed, you deserve it." "You..." The Flying Flower Academy's instructor's face darkened as he defended himself. How can this be considered a sneak attack from the back? It's clearly Zhao Li he. Lie. Fabricate. Teacher Zhou sneered and said, "The sneak attack from behind was witnessed by everyone, and everyone knew about it. Let's see how you're going to justify yourself. Don't waste your breath on them." Instructor who waved his hand and said to Auber and the others, "Go and rest first." Since this matter had been resolved by her teacher, there was no need for her to worry about it. Auber naturally nodded and followed his team members down the stage. When the Flying Flower Academy's instructor saw that they were going to continue like this, how could he be willing to let it go? Just as he shouted, "Stop right there!" he was already stopped by Instructor Zhou. "Hey, Are you looking for a fight? No wonder the students of your Flying Flower Academy are so despicable. So it's because they have a mentor like you. Who are you calling despicable? I already said that Zhao Li didn't launch a sneak attack from behind. He's just young and hot-headed and doesn't want to admit defeat. Get lost. Instructor Zhou angrily flicked his sleeves. You only have yourself to blame for being killed in an instant for an attack from the back. I won't take any responsibility. All of you. The Flying Flower Academy's instructor still wanted to say something, but the main referee, Hong Chi, walked up and cupped his hands towards him. This instructor from Flying Flower Academy has a personal grudge with a top academy. Please step down and settle it yourself. Chapter 1986. We still have to continue with the competition. Hong Chi glanced at the Flying Flower Academy's instructor and gestured for him to leave. His meaning was obvious. He wanted this instructor to leave the stage and not interfere with the students' normal competition. The Flying Flower Academy's instructor waved his sleeves and ordered people to carry Zhao Li's corpse. The two students who were carrying the corpse kept turning their heads to the side. How would they dare to look at Zhao Li's horrifying body? Their hands, which were carrying the corpse, couldn't help but tremble slightly. They only felt that they might have nightmares in the middle of the night. Useless things. The Flying Flower Academy's instructor scolded. Carry it properly. No matter what, this corpse had to be handed over to the Zhao family for them to see. As for the grudges with the top academies, a small instructor like him couldn't do anything about it. He would leave it to the Zhao family to deal with. The Flying Flower Academy's instructor's eyes revealed a trace of ruthlessness. The Zhao family wasn't a small family that could be easily dealt with. That student from the top academy killed Zhao Li and offended the Zhao family. He was afraid that things wouldn't end well. Arbor had already returned to his seat. He took out a small jar of peanuts from his inner world and started eating with his friends. Everyone chatted as they ate. They didn't seem to care about how alluring the scene of the bloody corpse was. They continued to eat happily. Little Fatty looked up and saw that Gu Lioli had turned around and ran to the outside of the seating area. She was hugging a pillar and retching in the corner. What's wrong with her? She was probably disgusted by the corpse just now. Qi Xianxian grabbed a handful of peanuts without any psychological burden. She shook her hand as she ate, her face full of disapproval. Her psychological endurance is too weak. She couldn't take it after looking at such a childish scene. What should she do when she meets a rotten corpse puppet in the future? Ma Ta nodded. That's right. That's why it's useless to be strong. She has to have a strong psychological endurance. That's the way. Otherwise, I'll be like her. She'll faint after looking at the blood. How can she fight? She would be strangled to death in minutes. Arbor was expressionless as he watched the jar in his hand being taken away by the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal. He lowered his head and looked at his empty hands. Emolienne couldn't help but want to laugh. She turned her head to look at the little fellow, raised her hand to pinch her little face and said, "Don't take those idle people to heart. The instructors of your academy seem to be quite free. Let them handle it." Arbor swallowed the last 2 peanuts in his hand and silently looked up at Zhou Danjin and the others who were walking back angrily. That instructor surnamed Pan from Flying Flower Academy is too laughable. Zhou Danjin said angrily, "It's an obvious fact, and he's still trying to quibble. I don't want to say anything to him." Everyone nodded in agreement. "Instructor, what did that guy say after that?" "Bullshit." Teacher Zhou waved his hand and sat down beside them. That guy surnamed Pan was still spouting nonsense. Your teacher Wei Wei went up and gave him 2 punches before he finally shut up. Everyone was speechless. Teacher Zhou patted the armrest of the chair and said to them earnestly, "Is Teacher Wei Wei's approach right? Obviously not. When we can reason with others, we shouldn't casually fight with them. Right?" Chapter 1987. Don't learn from Instructor Wei Wei in the future. His temper is too irritable. Zhou Danjin looked disapproving as he waved his hand and sighed. However, he saw Qi Xianxian and the others looking at Wei Wei with shining eyes, their faces full of adoration. Zhou Danjin couldn't resist twitching his mouth. What's with your expressions? I think Instructor Wei Wei did beautifully this time. The little fatty raised his chubby paw and said, when that Pan guy came up to make noise for half a day, I already couldn't resist the urge to beat him up. Right. Especially when I saw him licking his face and forcefully trying to clear Zhao Li's name, I especially couldn't control my desire to beat him up. Qi Xianxian also nodded repeatedly. Instructor Zhou! Exclamation point. What you're doing is wrong. We still have to be reasonable when it comes to reasoning, right? If reasoning doesn't make sense, we can resort to other methods. Instructor Zhou persuaded everyone earnestly and then turned to look at Miss Chow, who was silently eating dried fruit without saying a word. Look. Jojo's attitude is the one that truly solves a problem. Ah. Instructor Zhou pointed at Arbor and nodded approvingly. Sometimes, when the other party sees that you're silent, right, he won't continue to be long-winded. We have to be clear about this. Violence is really the most inferior way to solve a problem, isn't it? Duanmu Qing and the others silently glanced at the little stoic. Didn't Instructor Zhou overlook something? Just now, Jojo didn't say anything and just let the little white snake bite Zhao Li to death, okay? Jojo definitely wouldn't make noise for others, right? What was she making noise for? Wasn't her way of solving a problem to directly slap someone to death and then her ears would be especially quiet? You want Jojo to reason with others? Ha 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 ha. Everyone wanted to laugh out loud. Wasn't this a fantasy? Would Jojo blindly argue with you? If she had the time to blindly argue with you, she would have already slapped you to death so that you would never be able to argue, okay? They really didn't understand Jojo's way of dealing with people. This time, even Crown Prince Mo swept a disapproving glance at Mentor Zhou Danjin. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal, who had snatched Jojo's jar of peanuts, wanted to laugh. However, he held it in and coughed lightly. The little stoic turned a deaf ear to everyone's chatter and calmly ate the dried fruit in her hand. Boom! A loud tremor suddenly came from the distant seating area, startling the two teams competing in the arena. Everyone stood up, and the teams in the competition stopped what they were doing. Their gazes all turned towards the source of the sound. A huge pit had appeared beneath the feet of the instructor from the Flying Flower Academy, surnamed Pan. Teacher Pan was caught off guard. How could he have expected that the soles of his feet would suddenly sink when he was sitting perfectly fine? How big of a pit was this? Instructor Pan fell headfirst into the pit. He was completely stupefied. Not only was Instructor Pan dumbfounded, but even the stewards of Shanghua Martial Arts Arena who were responsible for maintaining order were also dumbfounded. Their Shanghua Martial Arts Arena had experienced so many competitions and basically held all kinds of big and small competitions every year. They had never heard of anyone falling into a pit, okay? Just how heavy was this instructor from the Flying Flower Academy to be able to make the pitiful ground unable to bear his weight and fall into the pit? Pfft! The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal burst out laughing, which then turned into a wild guffaw. Everyone looked at the embarrassed Instructor Zhou with a mocking gaze. Chapter 1988. Instructor Zhou's face hurts? Ha 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 ha. The laughter of Little Fatty and the others formed a unique band, transforming into Instructor Zhou's awkward backdrop and setting off Zhou Danjin's stupefied face. Cough. Zhou Danjin coughed lightly and turned to look. Even Instructor Wei Wei's stern and inflexible face couldn't conceal his smile. While he was praising Jojo's attitude is a true problem-solving attitude, the miserable Instructor Pan was in big trouble. Although Miss Chow was silently gnawing on her dried fruit, Zhou Danjin dared to bet his head that this girl definitely had something to do with the large pit that appeared under Instructor Pan's butt. Needless to say, Zhou Danjin felt that his old face really hurt a bit right now. Xiao Chow, what exactly did you do? Zhou Danjin coughed again and speechlessly glared at his worrisome student. Just as he wanted to elevate her image, who knew, Miss Chow glanced at Instructor Zhou from the corner of her eye and expressionlessly turned her small face away, continuing to gnaw on her dried fruit. However, Qi Xian and the others couldn't stop laughing. It was as if their laughing acupoints had been pressed, and they were rocking back and forth with laughter. Rewind time to 15 minutes ago. Instructor who waved his hand at them and said, "You all can go and rest first." When Arba turned to leave, her fingers moved slightly, and an explosion talisman enveloped by an invisibility talisman stuck to the butt of the Soaring Flowers Academy instructor who was spouting sophistry like gangrene attached to a bone. Everything that happened afterwards was practically a matter of course. As long as Arba willed it, that explosion talisman would explode whenever she wanted it to. Just now, she saw that Instructor Pan, who was incessantly snoring, holding a teacup handed to him by a student and pretending to drink water. Miss Chow promptly made the explosion talisman under his but take effect. Right now, this Instructor Pan probably didn't just have a very ugly fall. His but should be the worst hit, right? Who knew if it had split open now? What did you think I did? The little stoic swept Instructor Zhou and the others a glance and silently took out a cup of spiritual tea. Before she could bring it to her lips, it was snatched away by Zhi Chen, who was sitting on the side. Good tea. Just smelling it makes me feel extraordinary. The little stoic lifted her eyes to glance at him. She could only take out another cup and take a sip before saying dryly, "Do I look like someone who would do such a senseless thing?" Similar. Everyone gave her a word of affirmation in their hearts. Although they didn't know what she had done, they were very sure that she had done it. At this moment, Instructor Pan had already climbed out of the pit. His face was flushed red as he pointed at the stewards of the Shanghua battle arena who had surrounded him. He anxiously asked, You. Your Shanghua martial arts arena is often used for competitions. Once, twice, and thrice, the ground will be oppressed by the impact of spiritual energy. Don't they know how to repair the ground regularly? Although the corners of the stewards' mouths twitched slightly, they still comforted Instructor Pan kindly and immediately ordered people to take him away to apply medicine and rest. Looking at Instructor Pan's twisted walking posture, everyone's eyebrows couldn't help but twitch. This unlucky Instructor Pan, could it be that he had injured himself somewhere he shouldn't have? Wasn't it just an explosion from the explosion talisman? As for his walking posture being so ugly, Arba secretly ridiculed in her heart. Chapter 1989. Cough. Jojo, I didn't see you make a move. Instructor Zhou was still curious. He really didn't see when Arba made a move. However, it was obvious that before that, Arba had already made a move on Instructor Pan. Looking at Instructor Pan's current state, Miss Chow must have hit him rather hard. Lame. A certain someone defended herself stubbornly. I'm too lazy to make a move on him. What talisman did you use? It's so powerful. The Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal asked. Everyone then understood that Miss Chow had used a talisman just now. Strange, they didn't see her move at all. When did she stick the talisman on him? Arba coughed and silently raised his hand to stuff a piece of dried fruit into his mouth. Emolienne couldn't help but laugh. She raised her hand to rub the little fellow's head. Naughty. Everyone nodded emotionally, agreeing with the Crown Prince's judgment. This child was naughty indeed. Look at how Instructor Pan had made a fool of himself in front of everyone. The funniest one was Instructor Zhou. He had been praising this child for being silent, but in less than 3 seconds, he had been slapped in the face. This would probably be a shadow in Instructor Zhou's heart for the rest of his life. Let's see if he would still casually praise Jojo in the future. Ha 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 ha. Everyone couldn't help but laugh when they thought of this. Arba turned his little face and shook his sleeves. He took out a fire explosion talisman and slapped it on Instructor Zhou's hand, who was smiling awkwardly. This is? Fire explosion talisman. Miss Chow glanced at Zhou Danjin. Do you want me to demonstrate it? No need. Just from the name alone, one could tell that this talisman wasn't anything good. It was better to use it against the enemy. Instructor Zhou put away the talisman. His mood brightened up a little. Laugh, laugh, laugh your sister. Although he had been slapped in the face, who else would receive the same treatment as him? Little Qiao even gave him a talisman. Qi Xianxian covered her face and laughed. Instructor, when our Jojo can actually make a move, he probably won't blindly argue with others. So please don't tell that joke in the future. Instructor Zhou laughed awkwardly. Suddenly, he pointed at the arena and shouted, "Hey, it's your turn to prepare." He was about to enter the arena again. This is the first real match for all of you. Work hard. Bring glory to the academy. Following Instructor Zhou's impassioned cry, the various instructors and students sitting near them all turned their heads to look at them. Instructor, who coughed dryly, covered his face, and turned his head. He moved the chair closer to Instructor Wei Wei and muttered, "Why do I not want to know this person so much?" Instructor Wei Wei glanced away expressionlessly. "All right, tutor, let me treat you to a bun." The little fatty stuffed a vegetable bun into Instructor Zhou's mouth with one hand. He also had half a bun in his mouth as he followed Duanmu Qing and the others to the arena. This battle was between a top academy and the Hippo Academy. There was one thing that Teacher Zhou was right about. After 2 consecutive rounds, this was their first real battle in the academy ranking tournament. I'm so excited. Students of Hippo Academy, you can't disappoint us. I'm just waiting to fight with you. The 8 students from the top academies were lined up in a row on the stage. Aside from the stoic face and Captain Duanmu, almost everyone had a motherly smile on their faces as they looked in the direction of the stage, waiting for the students from Hippo Academy. 2 minutes later, everyone was still smiling. Chapter 1990. 5 minutes later, Qi Xianxian and the others couldn't smile anymore. The main referee, Hong Qi, strode to the center of the arena. He first glanced at Qi Xianxian and the others, whose smiles were a bit stiff, then turned to the seating area and called out, "Students from Hippo Academy, please enter the arena." The seating area was filled with rustling sounds. Everyone looked at each other, and they were all looking around, hoping to see the figures of Hippo Academy students. "Hey, what's going on? Where's Captain Sha Gua from Hippo Academy? What time is it? Why hasn't he appeared yet? What the hell is Hippo Academy doing? Do they think the academy ranking tournament is child's play?" Exactly. What's going on? Could it be that Sha Gua and the others feel that they can't beat the people from the top academies, so they simply gave up? That really shouldn't be the case. Even if they can't beat them, they still have to go up. Giving up without even saying a word, that's really too cowardly. Exactly. Everyone's discussion was endless. Qi Xianxian and the other top academy students' expressions also began to turn ugly. Based on their understanding of Sha Gua, even if he didn't come to participate, he wouldn't just disappear like that. At least he would go up on stage and admit defeat openly. That way, the tournament would end perfectly, right? Everyone turned their heads and subconsciously looked at the expressionless stoic face. Wait a little longer. Light the incense. Following Hong Qi's shout, someone lit a medium-length incense in the center of the arena. After 15 minutes, if Hippo Academy students don't go up on stage, it'll be considered as forfeiting. The top academies will automatically advance to the 4th round of the semi-finals according to the rules. The audience was in an uproar. Everyone didn't know if those guys from the top academies had saved the world in their previous lives. How could their luck be so damn good? What the hell? A senior from Shuntian Prefecture's Dawnlight Academy couldn't help but curse under his breath. Do they have good luck? Are those 2 female members of the top academy's team the ones who rode the land whale with us when we first came to Shuntian Prefecture? In the back row of Dawnlight Academy's preparatory team, a very ordinary-looking girl frowned and asked. That's right. Lu Hao nodded and said to the woman in a low voice, "Princess, let's just wait and see." This luck is way too good. A pretty girl sitting next to the princess couldn't help but pout her lips. Unconvinced, she said, "Hippo Academy actually gave up, we've never had such good luck." In reality, They were all students who had just arrived at Shuntian Hall not too long ago. They were only a few of the more outstanding ones among the new students, so they obtained the qualifications to come and watch the qualifier competition. However, the chances of them actually taking the field were 0. "Shut up, stop nagging me," the princess rebuked. "Big brother Sue." The woman pouted and looked at the square-faced man beside her. The man could not help but say angrily, "Lu Tianten, how many times have I told you? Don't act like a princess here. Stop yelling at you, Chen Hanyu pursed her lips and smiled complacently. Her gaze swept across Lu Tiantian's angry face, and then she looked away in disdain. Seeing that the candles on the stage were about to burn to the bottom, the spectators could not help but sigh. Wait. Chapter 1991. The luck of the top academies was unparalleled. Could it be that they were going to skip the third round? This luck was too enviable. Needless to say, with such good luck, even the big academies were starting to pay attention to the top academies. Especially, in the previous matches, there were students from the top academies who summoned their sacred beasts. Oh no, that little girl seemed to have 2 terrifying beasts by her side. The white snake that suddenly appeared was also very oppressive. Although they couldn't tell what level of beast it was, they could feel that the deterrence it gave off was not lower than the blazing blood phoenix. With such people in the top academies, it would be very difficult to win against them. Thinking of this, everyone couldn't help but feel discouraged. Even if the people from Hippo Academy came, they would probably be eliminated in minutes. Alright, time's up. Put down the incense. I will now announce that because of Hippo Academy's last-minute withdrawal, the top academies will successfully advance to the... Wait a minute. A voice interrupted Hong Chi. Everyone turned to look, and their faces couldn't help but become slightly excited. They saw Sha Gua leading a group of Hippo Academy students, his eyes drooping as he strode over. Something happened on the way here, so I'm a little late. Sha Gua said faintly, glancing at the extinguishing incense on the ground from the corner of his eye. Fortunately, I made it at the last moment. The atmosphere in the viewing area was instantly ignited. Everyone was clapping their seats and cheering. Hippo Academy dared to participate in the competition without fear of danger. Their courage was commendable. Everyone applauded and cheered. For a moment, the atmosphere in the entire arena was pushed to the peak of excitement. Good. Everyone applauded, full of anticipation for an exciting battle. Of course, there were more academies who wanted to observe the battle style of the top academies, so that they could come up with the best strategy when they meet them in future battles. Sha Gua led the people from Hippo Academy onto the stage. Everyone's head was slightly lowered, not looking directly at Arbor and the others. Qi Xianxian frowned slightly. Because they had made it to the end in the underground base, most of the people from Hippo Academy and Sunlight Academy had buried the hatchet. Their impression of Sha Gua and the others had improved a lot. But now that they met again on the stage, Sha Gua and the others didn't even greet them. They didn't even look at them from the corner of their eyes. Such a contemptuous attitude made Little Fatty and the others feel a little unhappy. Good. Referee Hong Chi's laughter could be heard from the side. Although the people from Hippo Academy are late, at least they managed to arrive at the last minute of the delay. Let's not waste any more words. You 2 teams to start the competition. After Hong Chi turned around and left, Sha Gua suddenly signaled with his eyes, and the 10 team members simultaneously attacked Qiao Mu and company. Streams of mystic energy and spiritual energy intertwined to form a gauze net that flew back and forth and rushed toward Qiao Mu and company. Arbors the 8 people to their positions to play. The 8 people to their positions to play. Play. Little Fatty opened an earth spirit shield and rushed to the front. Behind him, Qi Xianxian and Duanmu Qing rushed to the front. Tips and updates. Chapter 1992. Duanmu Qing activated his wood spirit, and wooden thorns emerged from the ground and wrapped around the legs of Sha Gua and the others. Qi Xianxian threw down a few bolts of lightning. However, she hadn't broken through to the spirit realm, so she couldn't use her spiritual power as she wished. However, under the guidance of the Thunder Spirit instructor, Qi Xianxian had already learned how to maximize the effectiveness of her limited spiritual power and maintain it for the best amount of time. Behind the two were Ma Ta, Hua Tao and Jiang Shaoxin. Two of them controlled the water spirit, while Jiang Shaoxin controlled the fire spirit. They used all their skills to collide with the spiritual power thrown at them by their opponents. In the end, Lu Yu opened the earth spirit barrier and helped little Fatty to cover everyone inside. Arbor acted as if nothing had happened as he stood beside everyone. With a flick of his finger, he threw out a few fire and water spirit talismans. When the 8 of them worked together, they were practically invulnerable. Normal people couldn't break their formation at all. Instructor Zhou, Wei Wei and the other instructors couldn't help but nod as they watched, their faces revealing expressions of admiration. The formation that these young children had come up with on their own was pretty good. They were good at both offense and defense. The 8 of them against the 10 of them easily withstood the attacks without showing the slightest sign of fatigue. Miss Chow could even wander around the team and reinforce her teammates at any time. This 8-man formation couldn't be any better. Everyone's positions were basically in place, and the strong and the weak were well matched. With their 8-man team, it would be a piece of cake for them to deal with 10 or 20 people. Instructor Zhou had a gratified smile on his face as he nodded. Not bad, not bad. The decision to throw them into the underground arena to participate in the championship was simply brilliant. If they didn't team up and compete together all the time, how could they form such a good rapport? Instructor Wei Wei glanced at Zhou Danjin indifferently. It was my decision to kick them into Chen Luo's underground arena. You even objected at that time. Zhou Danjin was speechless. Boom! The two teams collided fiercely. Sha Gua, who was in the lead, suddenly raised his head. His eyes were blood red, and an extremely strong air current erupted from his body, forming a small storm that swept towards Arbor. Sha Gua's abnormal behavior immediately aroused the vigilance of Duanmu Qing and the rest. Seeing that he had suddenly attacked Arbor, everyone immediately changed their formation and formed a double triangle, surrounding Miss Chow in the center. Sha Gua's whirlwind was blocked by Duanmu Qing, who pursed his lips in displeasure. Everyone backhanded Sha Gua a few fireballs and ice attacks. Qi Xianxian angrily shouted, "Sha Gua, what are you trying to do? Could it be that this brat wanted to completely fall out with them?" One had to know that from the start of the battle until now, they had been holding back. No one had summoned a profound beast. If they really summoned their beasts, then there was no need for this battle to continue. Sha Gua turned a deaf ear to the cries of the crowd. A bloody light flashed in his eyes as he suddenly roared into the sky. The 9 members of Hippo Academy who were following behind him opened their eyes at the same time. A streak of blood flashed through their eyes, and they madly grabbed the profound artifacts in their hands. Together, they pounced towards Arbor, who was surrounded in the center. It seemed that they wouldn't stop until they killed her. Everyone's eyes were filled with suspicion. Could it be that Sha Gua and his group were being controlled? Wake up and make up 2 chapters. These 3 days, they had to update 10,000 times a day. They could only do it at night. They couldn't make it in time at all during the day. Oh, someone asked me what 10,000 times a day was. 10,000 times a day. 10,000 words a day. As for someone who said 100 times a day, bah, go play chess with the Duke of Zhou. Chapter 1993. Arbor didn't panic when he saw this. He raised his hand, and hundreds of defensive talismans formed a circle around him, forming an extremely strong defensive array around him. He had already passed through the group of teammates. With a slight movement of his fingers, a dozen or so immobilization talismans fell down. After the talismans activated, the immobilization talismans fell on the 10 people from Hippo Academy. They only managed to immobilize 3 or 4 of them. The other 5 or 6 people seemed to be enraged. They all drew a line of spiritual energy and pushed it out. In an instant, it was as if they were about to topple mountains and overturn seas, rushing toward Arbor. Instructor Zhou was just about to jump out when Mo Lien pressed his hand down. Prince Mo coldly watched the fight in the arena. He said in a flat voice, "Trust Jojo. She'll be fine." The spiritual energy released by the 6 people from Hippo Academy, Sha Gua, and the others collided with the defensive array, creating a glaring light. After the explosion, Aba's figure immediately flashed behind Sha Gua. Sha Gua suddenly turned his head. A glimmer of light flashed through his scarlet eyes. Unfortunately, before he could move, he was chopped down by Aba's hand. With a bang, he crashed into the arena. Duanmu Qing used his wood spiritual energy to bind 2 of the Hippo Academy members. Apart from 3 people who were still stubbornly resisting, the rest were all immobilized by Aba's immobilization talismans. Qi Xianxian and the little fatty naturally had a much easier time dealing with them. Soon, the battle came to an end. All of the Hippo Academy students were restrained by Aba's group. However, although they were bound by spiritual energy, their entire bodies were still twisting and moving. They wanted to break free of the restraints and counterattack. Aba didn't hesitate to step forward. He gave each of them a chop, knocking them all unconscious. He then turned around and said expressionlessly, "Take them away." At this moment, if the people present still couldn't see that something was wrong with Sha Gua and the others, then they would all be idiots. What happened? Everyone whispered to each other, their expressions uncertain. "What are you doing?" The Dawn Academy instructor sitting in the front row stood up and pointed at the people from Aber with a frown. Aber didn't seem to care at all. He ordered people to drag the 10 students from Hippo Academy off the stage, and walk towards the open space at the side. Suddenly, Sha Gua opened his eyes and pounced on the little fatty who was holding his arm like a madman. It was about to bite little fatty's shoulder. Aber punched the left side of Sha Gua's face, causing several teeth to fly out. Sha Gua spat out a mouthful of blood. A silver needle pierced the back of Sha Gua's neck. Aba's attack was fast, ruthless, and accurate. Sha Gua was stunned for less than a second, and then his head drooped again. What are you doing?" When the instructor of the Chan Guang Academy saw her extremely cold expression and arrogant behavior, he couldn't help but get angry. Xiao Mu turned her head and swept him an incomparably chilly gaze. The Chen Guang Academy instructor was frightened by the power in her eyes. He couldn't help but take half a step back. "Move them over there." Aber was in an extremely bad mood at this time. She pointed to a place and said softly. Little Fatty and the others of course had no objections. They directly moved the 10 people over and placed them on the ground one by one. Aber moved her finger, and a stream of holy water shot out from her fingertips. Her left hand swiped the air, and a piece of medicinal powder was sprinkled down. It floated straight into everyone's mouths and noses. Chapter 1994. What kind of powder did you put in? The Chen Guang Academy's instructor cried out in alarm. He quickly covered his mouth and nose with his sleeves to prevent the powder from entering his nostrils. Wow, it smells so good. What kind of powder is this? After smelling it, my whole body feels comfortable, and I feel like the profound energy in my body is circulating faster. Yeah, it feels better than the profound recovery elixir. Some of the students standing behind Aber inhaled and exhaled, scrambling to absorb the remaining fragrance of the powder in the air. Don't smell it. You don't even know what it is, yet you dare to indiscriminately smell it. What if it's poison? What should we do? The Chen Guang Academy's instructor angrily reprimanded the students beside him. Instructor, I feel that the profound energy that was consumed in the fight just now has been restored by at least a third. Yes, I also feel that way. Ridiculous. The Chen Guang Academy's instructor was still covering his nose and mouth. He angrily glared at the 2 students who were trying to undermine him. How can there be such an instant powder in this world? Stop daydreaming. Be wary of any trickery. All of you hold your breath. Breathing was naturally not something that the Chen Guang Academy's instructor could control. Since they couldn't get through to the instructor, the students could only shut their mouths in resentment. However, they were still secretly absorbing the powder. Arbor was too lazy to pay attention to the self-righteous instructor. With a flip of her palm, 10 shining silver needles appeared between her fingers. Like a fairy scattering flowers, the needles pierced the chests of the 10 people in front of her. The 10 people from Hippo Academy opened their eyes at the same time and spat out a mouthful of black blood. The Chen Guang Academy's instructor cried out in alarm and shrieked, You! Quickly stop! Quickly call the arena's administrator over. Don't tell me that they're just going to watch this little witch casually harm other academy students? Who are you calling a little witch? Qi Xianxian angrily shouted, If you don't understand what others are doing, can you please shut your mouth? Mo Lian's group had already arrived at Arbor's side. Their expressions were indifferent as they glanced at the Chan Guang Academy's instructor who was making a ruckus. Get out of the way! Yuan Shurchen flicked her finger and a ray of spirit energy shot at the Chan Optics Institute's instructor's knee, causing him to kneel on the ground. Following that, a gust of wind was sent towards him, and the Chan Guang Academy's instructor was swept away like a piece of trash. With a bam, he fell onto the seats and crushed a few chairs. Xiao Mu simply didn't look at that Chengguang Academy's instructor in the eye. She took out a porcelain bottle and poured out 10 pills. Her fingers swiftly tapped those 10 people's acupoints from a distance, forcing the 10 people from Hippo Academy to simultaneously open their mouths. 10 pills were tossed into the mouths of the 10 people. They melted in their mouths, leaving only a faint medicinal fragrance in their mouths. This Grandmaster's medical skills are amazing. This old man admires you. A white-haired old man walked out from the Shuntian Starlight Academy. He gave Arbor a friendly smile and even cupped his hands politely. Ah! Isn't that Starlight Academy's alchemy Grandmaster Zhou? Even Grandmaster Zhou is so respectful towards this young lady. It seems that this young lady's medical skills are really amazing. Arbor turned his head and very politely returned a bow to Grandmaster Zhou. Senior is too kind. I don't deserve to be called a Grandmaster. It's just that I have studied medicine with my master for a few years and know a little about it. Hey, little Grandmaster, you're too modest. Grandmaster Zhou smiled and waved his hand. At this time, the 10 Hippo Academy students on the ground slowly woke up. Catch up on yesterday's 2 chapters. Today's 10,000 chapters would still be around 12 in the morning. Chapter 1995. Sha Gua, who was the leader, looked at the group of people around him blankly. He forced himself to sit up slowly and asked with a puzzled expression, What happened? Arbor moved her fingers, and several talismans glowed with a faint blue light. With a whoosh, they disappeared into the foreheads of the 10 people from Hippo Academy. You were poisoned, and the other party used a type of forbidden curse on you. During the confrontation just now, you completely lost control of your emotions and attacked us mercilessly. Xiao Mu explained dryly, Go back and properly recuperate. There's nothing wrong at the moment. Then, she threw a porcelain bottle to Sha Gua. Take 1 pill of this medicine every day. You should recover in 3 days. Thank you. The moment Sha Gua opened his mouth, he felt his mouth leaking air, so he hastily covered his mouth and forced an awkward smile at Xiao Mu and the others. Although he didn't know what had happened, he could tell from everyone's expressions that something bad had happened. Do you remember when you lost consciousness? Mo Lian suddenly asked. Sha Gua frowned and thought hard for a while, then shook his head blankly. No, I don't remember. I only remember that I went out with my friends as usual this morning. When we walked past a carriage with a black awning on the street, we saw the curtain of the carriage lift slightly. Other than that, it seems that nothing out of the ordinary happened. Arbor nodded. This person's method of poisoning is very shrewd. No wonder you were poisoned. Thank you for your help, Miss Chow. Sha Gua led the group of Hippo Academy students who had struggled to get up. They bowed again to Arbor, then left with the students. Arbor looked coldly in the direction they left. With a flick of her sleeve, a row of tiny black poison-tailed butterflies darted out of her sleeve and chased after Sha Gua and the others. My Chow's section break, Tsong State, southeast of the three upper states. Overlooking the entire Tsong State, it was like a fairyland shrouded in clouds and mist. Celestial mountains rose and hundreds of birds danced. Because it was southeast, separated from China and the underworld by the great forest to the north and the Sea of Forgetfulness to the west, it was relatively safe. For over 100 years, Tsong Prefecture had never experienced war. The people lived and worked in peace and harmony. Recently, in the capital of the Tsong Prefecture, Phoenix the Arch City, the most talked about thing was that Tsong Prefecture's great emperor had acknowledged his fourth son and brought the mother and son back to the Imperial Palace. Imperial Palace, South Chiao Hall, in a corner of the West Court. A man in a white robe was lazily lying on the stone table in the pavilion in the middle of the lake. Using his slender fingertips, he gently stirred a small cup of viburnum wine. A white jade cup rolled back and forth between his fingertips. The man supported his forehead with one hand, bored to death. Fourth Highness, Fourth Highness, Fourth Highness. Ah! The man's voice sounded as if he had just woken up from a deep sleep. Your Highness the Fourth Prince, His Highness the Crown Prince, Second Prince, and Third Prince's carriages have arrived at Donggu Gate one after another. Your Highness the Fourth Prince, please tidy up your appearance and go to the main hall to welcome the three princes. Gulp. The wine cup in the man's hand fell onto the stone table, and a thin and long stream of viburnum wine spilled out, slowly flowing along the cracks of the stone. Extremely boring. Your Highness, Your Highness. The young eunuch near him was almost scared to death. He scrambled to the ground and kowtowed repeatedly. Your Highness, the three princes are about to enter the main gate. Chapter 1996. Whoosh. The man lifted the hem of his robe and stood up, striding toward the main hall. Let's go. Your Highness, Your Highness. Looking at his slovenly His Highness with his waist-length hair and lazy appearance, the young eunuch wanted nothing more than to go up and cry. His Highness the Fourth Prince was too careless. His pitch-black boots stepped through the door, and with a casual flick of his sleeve, he saw three tall and slender youths standing inside the main hall. The man's eyes flickered, and he laughed loudly. Duan Yu was unaware of the three elder brothers' arrival. Please forgive Duan Yu for not going out to meet you. The three youths turned around. All of them were spirited and handsome, with dashing brows and bright eyes. Only the slightly older man at the front had an abnormally pale complexion. Fourth brother. That man nodded at him with a smile. How could you forget again? You have already returned to the palace with royal father and announced to the world that you are our Tsongzhou's fourth prince. Your real name is Rongli. Oh. Duan Yu interrupted the crown prince's words with a grin and waved his hand. It's only a name, nothing more than a title. It doesn't matter what I'm called. Fourth brother, eldest brother is right. I've been used to people calling me Duan Yu for the past 20 years. Hearing someone call me Rongli, Rongli, I really don't know who they're calling. Duan Yu lifted his robe and sat down in front of the table in an indecent manner. He pursed his lips at the three youths and said, Elder brothers came from afar just to talk to younger brother about such a trivial matter? Of course not. Tsongzhou's crown prince smiled faintly. On his slightly pale face, a pair of pitch-black eyes stared fixedly at this younger brother. To tell the truth, ever since royal father brought this younger brother back several days ago, he had never understood this person. You could say that he didn't care about trifles, but one could see that he was meticulous and reserved in his thoughts. You could say that he was a profound person, but he treated everyone as if he didn't care about anything. He would smile brightly when he saw people, as if he was magnanimous and wasn't afraid of anything being said. Even though the streets and alleys of the imperial city were currently filled with all kinds of legends about this fallen fourth prince, he didn't seem to care at all. Fourth brother. During the trip to the imperial ancestral temple tomorrow, Imperial Father will personally record your and noble consort Duan's names into the imperial family's genealogy. We brothers have come to congratulate you first. Duan Yu guffawed and waved his hand as he said, elder brother is treating me like an outsider. It's just a small matter. There's no need for you to come here personally. You can just send someone to pass on the message. This is a big event for fourth brother. How can we not come to congratulate you? The second prince said with a smile. Then many thanks, elder brothers. Duan Yu. Oh no, wrongly thanks elder brothers for their great kindness. Ali, actually, according to the usual practice, as long as a child of the Zhongzhou royal family is born, regardless of gender, 3 days after birth, they will be taken to the imperial ancestral temple by someone from the imperial clan's council of elders to undergo an inheritance ceremony. However, Duan Yu merely smiled and didn't say anything as he listened to them continue their conversation. At such a time, all he had to do was listen, and there was no need for him to interject or express any other opinion. The royal family of the Zong prefecture originally inherited the bloodline of the ancient demon emperor. Unfortunately, more than 1,000 years ago, a powerful figure in the clan obtained this inheritance. Since then, no one else obtained this inheritance. This powerful figure who obtained the inheritance of the ancient demon emperor was the founding monarch of our Zong prefecture. Duan Yu creased his brows but didn't say anything. Chapter 1997. Fourth brother, if you can obtain the inheritance of the demonic blood during this trip to the Imperial Ancestral Temple, your future encounters will definitely be very different from before, the third prince said with a smile. Fourth brother has only returned home for a few days. However, this older brother has heard royal father mention many times that fourth brother is gifted and extraordinarily intelligent. Presumably, only someone like fourth brother can obtain the favor of the ancient inheritance. Duan Yu smiled but didn't say anything. He merely swept a mocking gaze over the second and third princes. Aren't these two people acting a little too anxious? He hadn't even gone to the Imperial Ancestral Temple, yet they were already rushing over to pressure him. On the other hand, although his eldest brother the Crown Prince looked a bit sickly, he was far more scheming and courageous than those two idiots. It was no wonder that no one could shake his position as Crown Prince even though he had been sick all these years. The Crown Prince of Zong Prefecture chuckled. Second brother, third brother, the inheritance of the Devil Emperor also depends on chance. That's true. The second prince pursed his lips into a smile. To think of our Rong clan's most outstanding son, Prince Qing Rongqing, when he was born, it was said that the sky was filled with splendor. In the entire Zhongzhou, there was only day and no night. Duan Yu nodded with a grin. Regarding this Prince of Qing's legend, he had already heard many legends along the way before he even set foot in Phoenix Emperor City's territory. This heir was 2 years older than him, and it was said that he was the youngest person in the entire Zong prefecture to break through to the God realm before the age of 25. There were various versions of the legends about this heir Rong, and they were extremely vivid. Duan Yu had heard no less than 17 to 18 versions. The most outrageous one was that heir Rong was born with 8 heads and 16 arms. Even spiders didn't seem to be that scary. 3 days after the heir of Prince Qing was born, he was carried to the Imperial Ancestral Temple by the Council of Elders. The second prince smiled slightly, and there was a hint of schadenfreude in his smile. However, he didn't receive any of the Demon Emperor's inheritance that time. Duan Yu tilted his head and nodded vigorously. That's truly regretful. Fourth brother, you don't know. For someone as talented as Crown Prince Qing, he will have another chance to enter the Imperial Ancestral Temple after 18 years. He will have a second chance to obtain the ancient inheritance. Oh. Duan Yu nodded. Unfortunately, although Prince Qing's son possesses outstanding talent, he was still unable to obtain the acknowledgement of the devil bloodline. Duan Yu nodded vigorously and said with a nod of understanding, Elder brother wants to advise me not to have high expectations, right? As long as there was no expectation, there would naturally be no disappointment. Thank you for your reminder, big brother. Little brother is very grateful. You. The third prince was momentarily speechless. He indeed wanted to let this talented fourth brother know that it was not so easy to obtain the inheritance of the Devil Emperor. Of course, He had selfish motives and wanted to first strike this person's self-confidence, but this young man in front of him was too cooperative. He hadn't even said anything yet, but this fourth brother had already spoken such discouraging words. This unconventional guy made him momentarily speechless and didn't know how to continue the conversation. Song Prefecture's Crown Prince, Rong Li, smiled faintly and reached out to pick up the teacup that a servant handed over. He took a sip. Ali, we heard that noble consort Duan's body is slightly unwell due to the fatigue from the journey. Chapter 1998. We have prepared a meager gift for Her Highness the noble consort to nurse her health. We hope that fourth brother will not decline. Then many thanks, elder brother. After fourth brother visits the Imperial Ancestral Temple tomorrow, royal father will probably appoint a residence for fourth brother. When fourth brother moves in at that time, this older brother will come and disturb you again. Duan Yu nodded with a grin. After exchanging a few more pleasantries with his three elder brothers, he personally escorted the trio out of South Chow Hall. His gaze instantly chilled as he indifferently swept his gaze over the trio's departing figures. After a long time, he finally turned around and followed the garden path to the study. Your Highness. The junior eunuch followed this master with trepidation. For some reason, this master had clearly just arrived at South Chow Hall not long ago and was usually smiling, but for some reason, he often felt a chilly wind blowing from his heart. In the Phoenix the Arch City, which one of them was a simple character. Bring the gifts they sent to the study first. Yes. Duan Yu entered the study and kicked the door closed without any decorum. He slumped onto the low couch in front of the window and half reclined for a while with his legs crossed and head propped up in a sloppy manner. Until a junior eunuch knocked on the door and entered. He led a group of junior royal maids and eunuchs to move everything into the study. Your Highness. Duan Yu nodded and waved his hand to dismiss them. Afterwards, he flashed to the pile of gifts. He spent the entire afternoon in the study opening the gifts one by one. After carefully inspecting them for a while, he put them back one by one. After changing some of the things in the gift boxes, he threw a few more. By the time he finished admiring everything, it was almost dusk. Duan Yu sat down in front of the desk and stared blankly at the swaying shadows of the trees outside the window. After a while, he opened a secret compartment under the desk. He took out a rolled-up painting from inside. He supported his forehead with one hand and slowly unrolled the painting with the other. Duan Yu's gaze landed on the woman's expressionless, jade-like face in the painting. His fingers caressed it lightly as he muttered to himself, "When will you come? Your Highness, do you want to light a lamp and serve a meal?" Duan Yu heaved a long sigh of relief before rolling up the painting again and placing it in the secret compartment under the desk. He stood up and strode outside. Let's go to Changren Hall. A moment later, the head palace maid of Changren Hall hurriedly came in to report, "Nyong Nyong, His Highness has arrived." Noble consort Duan happily stood up. Just as she was about to go out and welcome him, she saw her son's handsome figure appear at the door and stride towards her. "Mother." Duan Yu bounced to his mother's side, his eyes curving into crescents. Old Nanny Lin, who had taken care of Duan Yu and his mother for many years in Seekong Planet's Duan family, said with a smile, "His Highness the Fourth Prince probably hasn't eaten dinner yet, right? This old servant will ask someone to serve the meal." Noble consort Duan smiled as she took her son's hand and poked his forehead with her finger. "This child, you don't have a proper appearance all day long. Look at your lazy attire. Do you think this is still Seekong Planet's Duan family? Mother, does this son need to dress up like a flower to come to your place?" Noble consort Duan burst into laughter and glared at him in both amusement and annoyance. She raised her hand to accept the fine-toothed comb that the head palace maid handed over and casually combed her son's long hair. She couldn't help but mutter, "Son, you're not young anymore. After you return from the Imperial Ancestral Temple and acknowledge your ancestors, how about Mother have your royal father arrange a marriage for you?" Chapter 1999. Duan Yu nearly jumped up from his stool when he heard this. He hastily grabbed his mother's hand and said, "Mother, don't randomly matchmake Sun. At Sun's age, Sun is still only an infant in Songzhou." Her Highness noble consort Duan almost burst out in laughter, and she lightly smacked the back of her son's head. "Nonsense. Mother, Sun is speaking the truth. Look at eldest brother, he's nearly 40 years old, but he hasn't married and had children yet. Is there a need to rush this matter? But your eldest brother already has a marriage partner. What about you?" Noble consort Duan asked softly. "Ali, tell mother, do you have a girl that you fancy?" "No way." Duan Yu casually tossed a strand of long hair behind his head and pulled his mother's hand as he said, "Mother, if I fancy a girl, why wouldn't I tell you? Your son has grown up and can't be controlled by his mother. Don't keep saying these words to deceive me. I keep feeling that my son already has someone he likes." Duan Yu's smile stiffened, but he immediately broke into a flower-like grin. "Mother, there really isn't. Oh, that's right, I came over to bring gifts for eldest brother, second brother, and third brother. They sent over many tonics." Duan Yu lowered his voice and whispered into his mother's ear, "Sun has already inspected them one by one. They are all pretty good medicinal herbs, so mother can just take them. Later, I'll have the royal physician come over and prescribe 2 food therapy prescriptions for mother to eat together." "You mischievous spirit." Noble consort Duan pursed her lips and smiled as she patted her son's forehead. "Hey, you should carefully consider what mother told you just now. Son, you should get married early. Mother can also hold a grandson or something as soon as possible." Duan Yu looked up at the sky speechlessly. "Mother, I already said that the average lifespan in Songzhou is over 200 years old. Your son is only 20 years old. He'll only be 21 after the new year. Is it worth the rush?" "That's right." Noble consort Duan sighed, her voice revealing a faint trace of loneliness. "People like you who embark on the path of cultivation easily have lifespans of over 100 years old. But mother is only a normal person. Mother is worried that in this lifetime—" "Mother, don't worry. In this world, there are countless elixirs that can prolong one's life. Moreover, I have a friend who is a very outstanding alchemist. Don't worry, the next time we meet, I will ask her for more elixirs that can prolong one's life. I guarantee that mother will be able to live healthily until 200 to 300 years old." Seeing his glib tongue, noble consort Duan couldn't help but roll her eyes at him and laugh. "Friend? What kind of friend is this? Is it a girl?" Duan Yu twitched his mouth and quickly shook his head. "No, it's a man, a big beard." Noble consort Duan looked at him helplessly. "So useless. Look at you, my son. You're young and talented, and you're so handsome. How come you can't even get a wife after 20 years? Duan Yu simply wanted to flee. Whenever his mother brought up this topic, it was as if she had been scared witless. She repeatedly brought up the matter of his wife. It was so difficult to divert her attention. "Son, you're going to the Imperial Ancestral Temple tomorrow. Have you prepared your luggage?" "Mother, what luggage do I need? The things I want are all in my inner world." "Oh, that's right. My son is a very impressive great mystic cultivator." Duan Yu couldn't help but feel helpless. His mother was only a normal woman. After failing to trigger her mystic meridians, she had never come into contact with cultivation in her entire life. Chapter 2000. So his mother simply didn't know what cultivation realm he was currently in. In her opinion, great mystic cultivators seemed to be the most powerful cultivators in the end. After accompanying his mother for a meal and listening to her nag for a while, Duan Yu finally returned to South Chiao Hall. He cultivated in the inner hall until dawn, when a steward eunuch came to invite him to bathe and change his clothes. This day was destined to be an extremely busy and convoluted day. Duan Yu's section break. The sky was just beginning to brighten. Prince Mo and Miss Chow's figures both appeared on the side of the empty street. Aba coldly gazed at the black canopied carriage parked on the side of the street. Just as she was about to walk up, Emolienne gently grabbed her wrist. "Stay here, I'll go take a look first," Emolienne said softly as she leaped over. Just as she landed in front of the black canopied carriage, a scarlet flame flew up and burned the carriage's curtains to ashes. There was no one inside the carriage, but there were several poison-tailed butterflies that had fallen inside. Auber quickly walked to his side and stuck her head out to take a look inside the carriage. Her expression turned even colder. "That person shouldn't have escaped too far. Let's chase," Auber said coldly. Emolienne naturally nodded and hooked his wife's waist. With a leap, Little Seven turned into a meandering golden light. The two jumped onto the dragon's back and took advantage of the fact that the sky had yet to brighten to give chase for several kilometers. Finally, they discovered two black flying eagles in the desolate outskirts of the city. They were carrying two panic-stricken men as they fled with all their might. Auber coldly narrowed her eyes, and her gaze landed on the eagles' backs. Her pupils contracted, and a red light shot out from her eyes. The two men, who were lying on the eagles' backs and urging them to speed up, suddenly felt a gust of wind behind their heads. When they turned back to look, their hearts almost jumped out of their chests. They saw two large trees that had sprouted from the ground flying straight at their backs. The two men quickly patted the eagles beneath them and urged them to dodge in fear. But how could they make it in time? Once Auber's telekinesis was activated, it was absolutely seamless and as fast as lightning. With just a quick thought, she would be able to use any external object within 100 meters at will. Boom! Boom! The two of them were pulled by the trees, and their flying speed immediately slowed down. A line of fire immediately landed on the backs of the two eagles. As soon as their feathers were ignited, two shrill eagle cries came from the sky. How could the two eagles withstand the roasting of the purple flame? Smoke rose from their bodies as they tumbled down from the sky and crashed heavily onto the ground. Emolienne took a step forward and appeared in front of them with her arms around Auber's waist. The two of them tried to resist, but were unexpectedly kicked in the chest by Prince Mo's two flying kicks. Their entire bodies rolled backwards, and their backs hit the ground heavily. Auber raised his finger and tossed two dictum talismans to the two of them without hesitation. "Who are you?" She knew that after the mastermind discovered that the poison and puppet talismans on Sha Guo's group from Hippo Academy had been removed, they would definitely come to investigate. Thus, she had the poison-tailed butterfly follow the students from Hippo Academy and wait for them to come to her door. "We are disciples of the Clear Sky Sect." "Clear Sky Sect. I didn't look for you, but you took every opportunity to cause trouble for me." Auber's eyes were filled with anger, and her fingers were tightly clenched into fists. Chapter 2001. When the competition is over, I'll look for you. Auber's eyes flashed, and she flicked two explosion talismans at the two of them. In an instant, there were two loud booms. She didn't turn back to look at them again. She pulled Prince Mo and turned to leave. "Jojo." Emolienne gently pulled her little hand back and hugged her to his side. He lowered his head and gazed deeply at her. "The people from Clear Sky Sect are like a group of rats in the corners, strolling out from time to make things difficult for you. How about you leave them to me to deal with?" Auber shook her head and gritted her teeth stubbornly. "No, I want to deal with Fan Gu and Fan Chiohe personally." She wanted to personally end this nightmare of the past. No one could do it for her. "All right, since you've already decided." Emolienne raised his hand to stroke her slightly messy hair. "Then I'll support you. I'll send people to investigate their location first. As long as we have the exact location, we don't have to worry about them escaping. I'll send people to restrain them first. When you get there, you'll deal with them personally." Auber threw herself into his arms and shifted her head on his chest. She said in a muffled voice, "Am I too willful?" "Nonsense." Emolienne smiled and patted her head. "My Jojo is so considerate. How can you be willful?" Emolienne pulled her little hand and headed in the direction of Serenity Inn. When the two returned to the inn, the sky was already bright. Hu Shurchen and the others also came downstairs one after another. Looking up, Hu Shichin, who was leaning on the side, happened to see the two walking in hand. "Oh, so early. Did you go out to do something naughty again?" Facing the morning light, Hu Shichin smiled at Arba. Arba reached out and picked up 2 boxes of pastries. "I met someone selling crispy meat patties at the street corner. I only bought 3 patties for 1 spirit coin. There aren't many. First come, first served. My Jojo is the most considerate." The venerable peach blossom immortal's eyes curved into crescents as he smiled. He gently floated over to Arba and lifted his hand to take the 2 boxes of desserts from her hands. "I'm a little hungry. Hey, shopkeeper, give me another bowl of porridge." "Ha! You're Jojo. Who's yours?" Emolienne rolled her eyes at young Master Feng. She pulled Arba to the table and took the millet porridge from the owner. "Eat." Arba took out 2 more hibiscus cakes from the lunchbox and placed them in front of Shichin. "Yes." The little fellow propped up her chin with one hand as she stirred the boiling porridge in the bowl. She harumphed and said, if Duanyu was here, he could finish these 2 plates of hibiscus cakes in one go. Emolienne's hand that was holding the chopsticks paused for a moment. She picked up a piece of hibiscus cake and put it into her mouth. "Oh." Shichin pursed her lips with a spurious smile and patted Arba's arm. "Why did you suddenly think of that dunce out of the blue?" "Nope, I just thought of him when I saw this plate of hibiscus cakes." Arba pointed at Emolienne and said, "Hubby doesn't like to eat sweets, but Duanyu likes them. Men who like to eat sweets are usually more feminine." Emolienne took a bite of the hibiscus cake and felt that it wasn't to her taste, so she tossed it to the side. A certain venerable immortal, who had already eaten 2 pieces of hibiscus cake, suddenly felt that he couldn't bring his chopsticks down. "Do you freaking know how to speak? Who are you calling feminine?" "Jojo, don't listen to Emolienne's nonsense. This is all a matter of taste." Shichin thought about it but still picked up the 3rd piece of hibiscus cake. Chapter 2002. Arba propped up her chin and turned to look at Prince Emolienne. "Do you have something to say?" "No." Emolienne calmly finished her porridge and put down the bowl. Arba puffed up her cheeks and looked at him in a huff. "Liar. You clearly paused and wanted to say something just now. Do you think Jojo is a fool?" Prince Emo couldn't help but chuckle. Ji Chen's eyes curved, and she said with a nod, "Jojo, it's good that you think that way. He's a liar. Look, he even hid such a small matter from you, let alone that kind of major matter." "Shut up." Prince Emo directly stuffed half a steamed bun into Ji Chen's mouth and turned to look at Arba. "It's not a major matter. It's just that I recently received a rather interesting rumor about Duanyu." "What rumor?" Arba asked curiously. 4th Duan was born in the Zhongzhou Rong clan. Zhongzhou Rong clan? What kind of place is that? Arba expressed her confusion. Zhongzhou, one of the 3 upper provinces. Ji Chen explained with a smile, the Divine Province, Zhongzhou, and Underworld Province are the 3 upper provinces. "Don't you know this, my Jojo?" Arba pursed her lips and took a bite of the hibiscus cake. How could I remember so much? When he told her about the 3 prefectures and 6 prefectures, she only thought about it once in her head. Most of it was just a passing thought. The little girl stirred the porridge with a spoon and asked curiously, "Zhongzhou Rong clan? Duanyu?" Emolienne nodded. "I received news that Duanyu returned to Zhongzhou's capital, Phoenix Emperor City, with the Emperor of Zhongzhou a few days ago. His mother, the youngest daughter of the Duan family head, was promoted to noble consort Duan by the Emperor of Zhongzhou. Isn't there a concealed weapons patrician family in the Divine Province?" Emolienne nodded. The Divine Province's Duan clan can be said to be 4th Duan's family. However, they probably haven't interacted much for over a century. Arba pursed her lips. "If it were me, I wouldn't acknowledge this kind of father." "Oh, my Joe." The venerable peach blossom immortal smiled so widely that his beautiful eyes narrowed into slits. That's the great emperor of Tsong Prefecture, the most honorable of the upper three prefectures. Together with the great emperor of the Divine Land and the great emperor of the Underworld, they were known as the three great emperors of the three upper continents. If it were my Chow, would you not want such a father? Why him? After tossing Duan Yu and his son on Seekong planet for 20 years, elderly Patriarch Duan had finally raised Duan Yu up after much difficulty, yet he brought him back with a single sentence. How could there be such a beautiful thing in this world? I wouldn't want a father like that even if you gave it to me. Not only that, a family like that should be cut off all contact with. Abba thought of something, and his eyes flashed with a sharp light. Mo Lien chuckled as he rubbed the little fellow's head. He understood clearly in his heart. His little girl had such a strong temperament. If you wanted her to treat you with sincerity, you had to pay a heavy price first. Otherwise, the little fellow would bury her heart deep and absolutely wouldn't allow you to get close to her. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal clicked his tongue and nodded repeatedly. Jojo's words are reasonable. In that case, Fourth Duan is only someone who covets glory, splendor, and wealth? Abba pursed his lips tightly and didn't utter a word. Jojo, this matter isn't up to Fourth Duan to say that he doesn't want to go back. Prince Mo couldn't resist defending Fourth Duan after some thought. When Abba thought of the great emperor of Tsongzhou's power, he felt relieved. Sleep soundly, wake up to catch up on 2 nights. Chapter 2003. After all, with Duan Si's current power, it was impossible for him to go against Tsongzhou's emperor. Tsongzhou's emperor could probably wipe out Seekong planet's Duan family 18 times over with a single finger. How could Duan Si win against them? Abba felt a trace of anger in her heart, probably because she thought of her background and those unreasonable people from the 3 states. If they force me to go back, I'll definitely make their lives worse than death, and their homes will never be at peace. When she spat out this sentence, Crown Prince Mo and young Master Feng could both sense her intense emotional turmoil, and her tone was laced with intense loathing. Prince Feng quickly patted the little fellow's head. Don't worry, with me here, no one can force you to do anything. Mo Lien glared at Prince Feng's hand, and the latter glanced at her. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Duan Muqing and the others coming down from the 3rd floor, so he retracted his hand. Hey, you guys are so early. The little fatty quickly walked down the stairs and dragged a stool to sit in front of them. Speaking of which, we should be able to enter the top 30 in 2 days. Mata took a bun, broke off a piece, and stuffed it into her mouth. I wonder if they'll play any tricks in the finals. Zhou Danjin looked at the students with an indescribable gaze. Instructor Zhou, if you have any concerns, why don't you share them with us? Zhou Danjin looked at the crowd. I think that since everyone knows that Xiao Qiao has a sacred beast by her side, the finals won't be held back. I reckon that the final match won't be carried out in a face-off situation. This was something that everyone understood. They knew that Jojo had sacred beasts, and perhaps more than one, but still wanted to fight with her for first place in the finals. That would be blind. Then, Instructor Zhou, what kind of tricks do you think the old men from the prefecture's first-class academies will play? Zhou Danjin sighed and shook his head. Let's wait and see. If the other party's request was too outrageous, it wouldn't just be the top academies that would be dissatisfied. Don't tell me they want us to clean up some zombie base again? The little fatty cried out with a piece of pastry in his mouth. Wei Wei shook his head. They're not that stupid. They didn't say that we can't use mystic beasts to sweep through the zombie base. That's right. Everyone nodded in agreement. If they wanted to target him, those old fogies of the academy would probably issue a rule that prohibited the use of any profound beasts in the finals. Aber looked disinterested as he said expressionlessly, if we don't summon Bloodblaze and the others, do we really have no way to deal with those people? If those teachers from prestigious schools had such thoughts in their hearts, they would advise their students to take care of themselves. Instructor Hu smiled and said, Xiao Qiao has shown her medical skills in front of everyone again. If they intend to target our academy, they should have taken this into consideration. Qi Xianxian sneered, "Isn't that their trump card, the inner world seal?" Instructor Zhou smacked his lips and coughed lightly. Perhaps this time, they will make it clear that talismans are not allowed. Everyone raised their eyebrows. "Don't worry, Mentor. We've already experienced such hardships in Chen Luo's underground arena." Lu Yu chuckled. Ma Ta interrupted from the side. "That's right. Speaking of which, we have to thank the teachers for their strict training." "That's right." Zhou Danjin nodded. "Didn't the teachers put in so much effort for you?" Chapter 2004. Only those who can survive in the most arduous environment will naturally not fear anything in the future. Everyone silently rolled their eyes. Therefore, everyone should still carry some medicine and the like with them. Otherwise, when the time comes, there will be new rules for the finals and catch you off guard. Understood. Instructor. Understood. Alright, since everyone has eaten and drank their fill, let's set off. Everyone stood up and walked towards Shanghua Martial Arts Arena in groups. There won't be any problems with drawing lots after this. The remaining teams are probably about the same in terms of strength. Zhou Danjin said, "Xian, go up and draw lots today and tomorrow." Miss Chow glanced at Instructor Zhou from the corner of her eyes. She didn't expect this instructor to be so smart. He actually knew that she was tired of drawing lots. Qi Xianxian naturally nodded in agreement and didn't have any other objections. More than half of the teams that were eliminated previously didn't leave the arena. Although they lost the right to continue competing, they all chose to stay and observe the remaining matches. After all, they could learn a lot of actual combat experience from observing. This was a rare opportunity, so no one was willing to give up on it. Moreover, the students that were eliminated from the competition were all stifled and wanted to know who the top 3 would be this year. Abba sat down and watched Qi Xianxian go up the arena. There were 170 teams participating in this round. The main referee, Elder Hong, announced loudly as soon as he went up the stage, "The top 10 academies of the 6 prefectures have been decided at the last minute. The top 30 teams must be determined today. Even if it takes until dawn, the top 30 must be determined. Does everyone have the confidence to continue?" "Yes." The representatives of the 170 academies answered loudly. Qi Xianxian silently cursed in her mind. Instructor Zhou and the rest guessed correctly. Look, this troublemaker is probably coming soon. After drawing the number 18 bamboo stick, Qi Xianxian and the academy representative who also held the number 18 bamboo stick looked at each other. They didn't say anything else and directly jumped off the stage to return to their seats. My Chow's section break. Tsong Province. Our dear Duan Yu, who left before dawn, sat in the imperial carriage and swayed back and forth as he dozed off. The young eunuch who accompanied him knelt by his side. From time to time, he had to stretch out his hands to support his master's head, so as to prevent him from hitting his head against the window. The noon sunlight seeped in through the thick curtains of the carriage and scattered on his jade-like face. Even Prince Qing, who was known as the #1 handsome man in Phoenix Emperor City, couldn't compare to the 4th prince's gorgeous facial features and charming appearance. The little eunuch thought silently in his heart. Then, he heard a low voice coming from outside the carriage. "Your Highness, we have arrived at Mount Taiyuan." "Your Highness, Your Highness." The eunuch reached out to support his master's drooping head. The corner of his mouth couldn't help but twitch. "Your Highness, it's time to prepare to climb the mountain." Duan Yu opened his bewildered eyes, and his watery peach blossom eyes were at a loss. "Prince Qing, together with Prince Qing, requests an audience with His Majesty," a shrill voice sounded beside her ear. Duan Yu instantly lost his drowsiness. When he recalled the rumored 8-headed heir of Prince Qing, his eyes flickered. "Let's go take a look." Your Highness, please slow down." Before the eunuch could pull open the curtains, Duan Yu had already jumped off the carriage first. When he looked forward, he saw Tsangzhou's crown prince, Rong Li, slowly alighting from the carriage with the help of 2 eunuchs. Make up for yesterday's 2 chapters. Tonight's 6 chapters, later. Chapter 2005. Although Rong Li's physique was a bit frail, he looked refined and courteous. He could be considered an elegant young master. Duan Yu cupped his hands at him and strode to the carriage. He saw the Prince of Qing, who was wearing a green fur cloak, striding to the Zhongzhou Emperor's carriage with a grin. He bowed and said, "Your Majesty, this subject brother has disturbed you." Duan Yu was a bit disappointed when he saw the Prince of Qing's round figure. Rumors were indeed rumors. Just by looking at the Prince of Qing's appearance, how good could the heir of King Qing be? As expected, the rumors were false. They were nothing more than exaggerated rumors passed down from person to person. Duan Yu pursed his lips and looked away. When he turned his head, he saw a tall young sir with an outstanding appearance and a very indifferent expression. He was wearing a thin embroidered blue cloak as he walked forward. He was wearing a light green robe with several elegant green bamboos embroidered on the hem. The bright green hairpin in his hair shimmered faintly under the sunlight, setting off his snow-white face to appear aloof and indifferent. When his gaze landed on him, his footsteps paused and he bowed at him. "Your Highness the Fourth Prince." Duan Yu gaped as his gaze landed on that person. He hesitated for a moment before replying, "Qing? The heir of King Qing?" "Yes." The young sir nodded indifferently. Duan Yu instantly silently retracted his internal criticism. The father is the father, and the son is the son. The heir of King Qing's appearance was probably 99% similar to his mother's. However, this father and son pair was too festive. They were both dressed in green, and the heir of King Qing even had a green on his head. How much did he want to be green? At this moment, the Zhongzhou Emperor also alighted from the carriage. The Emperor had a tall and sturdy figure and an imposing heroic aura. Based on appearance alone, Duan Yu naturally took after his beautiful mother. To think that he was still silently criticizing other people. In reality, he and his father were only slightly similar from head to toe in terms of their dashing eyebrows. In reality, even their temperaments were not similar. The Zhongzhou Emperor nodded and said, "Quickly go up the mountain. Don't miss the auspicious hour." Mount Taiyuan was where the ancestral temple of the imperial family was located. Since the founding of the dynasty, every time the imperial family of the Zong prefecture went up the mountain to pay their respects, no matter how high their status was. Even the emperor himself had to go up the mountain to pay his respects. They were not allowed to use carriages. Fortunately, everyone had some foundation in cultivation. Even if their talent wasn't that outstanding, it wouldn't take much effort for a great mystic cultivator to climb a mountain. Half an hour later, several palace maids and eunuchs without any cultivation base hurriedly followed their master's footsteps and arrived at the Taizong Temple on Mount Taiyuan. Emperor Zhongzhou's expression was faintly agitated as he turned to Duan Yu and said, "Ali, enter the imperial ancestral temple with Qing, Duan Yu curiously glanced at Prince Qing's heir, Rong Qing. Didn't he say that he could only enter the imperial ancestral temple twice in his lifetime? Whether or not he could obtain the inheritance of the Devil Emperor would depend on his luck. Why now? Rong Qing didn't say anything and didn't even look back at Duan Yu. The two of them ascended the long steps of the imperial ancestral temple. After walking for at least half an hour, they finally entered the main hall of the imperial ancestral temple. An elder with white hair and beard had already been waiting for them in the main hall for a long time. When he saw Duan Yu and Rong Qing enter the imperial ancestral temple one after the other, he greeted them with a smile. "Qing also came. Please wait a moment. Your Highness the Fourth Prince." "Qing, come in with me first." Duan Yu was very indifferent. In any case, he had never cared about this Devil Emperor's blood. Chapter 2006. As he watched the elder lead Rong Qing inside, Duan Yu's heart did not ripple in the slightest. Prince Qing's heir was probably unwilling to give up and wanted to beat him to the punch and see if he could inherit even a wisp of the Devil Emperor's blood. Inside the inner hall, a gorgeous light suddenly flourished. The elder's excited cry came from inside. Heir? Is it going to succeed? Just as the elder finished speaking, that light suddenly vanished without a trace. The white-haired elder shook his head and sighed deeply. It still won't work. Every time, it was so close by, and the elder felt anxious watching from the side. When the two of them came out of the inner hall one after the other, Duan Yu specially paid attention to Prince Qing's heir, Rong Qing's expression. Yet when he saw that fellow's unruffled expression without any change, he couldn't help but feel bored. What's up with this emotionless look on his face? Since you have no desires, then why do you keep coming to ask for the inheritance of the Devil Emperor's blood? Hence, it was merely a facade. Your Highness, please. The elder finally walked up to Duan Yu and made a respectful gesture. Duan Yu nodded and followed the elder to the inner hall. He looked up. This inner hall was merely empty, and there was only a huge stone platform built in the center of the hall. A transparent crystal ball emitting a purple light was suspended high above the stone platform. The round crystal ball appeared very blurry under the illumination of the candlelight. As the crystal flashed, a speck of vermilion seemed to flash across the purple crystal ball. Duan Yu quickly walked up at the elder's signal and turned back to smile at him. Elder, what if I inject spiritual energy into this crystal ball, and it can't bear the burden and explodes? What should I do then? Duan Yu blinked and said, At that time, where would I go to find another sealing ball that carries the inheritance of the Devil Emperor's blood for you? The elder couldn't help but chuckle. Your Highness, do your best. If you want to shatter this sealing ball in one go, it's impossible with just you. The elder forcefully swallowed his words. This kind of shrewd person naturally wouldn't say anything disobedient in front of Duan Yu. Duan Yu's hands came out from under his sleeves. Suddenly, a stream of water spirit appeared in his hands and shot straight at the inheritance sealing ball. After the spiritual energy landed on the inheritance seal, the entire sphere exploded with a blinding light. This kind of light was 1,000,000 times more dazzling than the light that burst out when Rong Qing went in. The elder was completely stunned. Prince Qing's heir, Rong Qing, who was standing in the outer hall, abruptly turned his head. His expressionless face finally revealed a hint of surprise. There was no lack of geniuses in this world. Standing outside the Imperial Ancestral Temple, waiting for the result of the inheritance, the Zhongzhou Emperor and the Crown Prince both looked up at the blinding divine light above the Imperial Ancestral Temple. Rong Li secretly suppressed the gloominess in his eyes and thoughtfully raised his head to look at the place where the strong light appeared. Ha 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 ha! Song Prefecture's great Emperor Rong Yuan couldn't help but laugh loudly. Could it be my son? Your Majesty! Congratulations, Your Majesty! The elder ran down the long steps leading to the Imperial Ancestral Temple and reported the good news repeatedly. His Highness the Fourth Prince is starting to accept the inheritance. Where's my son? The Emperor was so excited that his hands were shaking. The elder naturally also said excitedly, His Highness is currently isolated. We can't approach for the time being. Chapter 2007. According to ancient records, the clan's descendants who obtain the supreme inheritance can take as little as 7 days to as many as several months. Congratulations, Your Majesty! Congratulations, Your Majesty! The elder had a fawning smile on his face, but he was a bit alarmed that he had neglected His Highness the Fourth Prince earlier. Once this honorable and magnificent His Highness the Fourth Prince absorbed the Devil Emperor's bloodline inheritance, he would come out. In the future, he would become the most powerful and noblest person in the entire Rong clan. It was simply unimaginable what His Highness the Fourth Prince, who had just returned home, would achieve in the future. Zhongzhou's great emperor, Rong Yuan, was also very happy. For thousands of years, his fourth son had become the only person in the Rong clan who could obtain the Devil Emperor's bloodline inheritance. How could he not be excited and happy about this? At this very moment, Duan Yu, who was inside the inner hall, felt as if his entire body was being burned by a raging inferno. It was indescribably unbearable. His entire body had been sucked into that transparent inheritance sealing ball, and he circulated his qi to resist the heat that was drilling into his body. That scarlet ray of light sank into the depths of his glabella. Duan Yu abruptly opened his eyes, and he couldn't resist howling in rage. D***mn, this was 2F** king painful. This D***mn inheritance, was it trying to tear apart his conscious? At this moment, only he was very clear that his conscious seemed to be about to be evaporated by the heat. It was currently emitting waves of heat, causing his entire conscious to sink into an unbearably painful state. Duan Yu suddenly reached out his left hand and tightly gripped his right arm. When he looked down, he saw a very distinct red line of blood spreading up inch by inch from his left wrist, as if it was burning and tempering all the meridians in his body. This kind of pain from the reconstruction of his bloodline was truly unforgettable. D***mn. He didn't need this kind of inheritance, alright? It hurt, it hurt, it hurt. It hurt so much. Duan Yu only felt like he was a trapped beast tightly locked in that inheritance sealing ball, passively and dazedly accepting this kind of inheritance. Ah! A shrill howl broke through the summit of Zhongzhou's Imperial Ancestral Temple. Outside the Imperial Ancestral Temple, Crown Prince Rong Li's handsome face was gloomy. He lowered his eyes slightly to hide the strange look in his eyes. She really didn't expect that the son of her father's mistress would actually have such an opportunity. Not long after entering the palace, he had already obtained the favor of the Devil Emperor's inheritance and easily obtained the inheritance. Rong Li closed his eyes. When he turned his head to look at the Emperor again, he regained his spring breeze-like smile. Imperial Father, the fact that fourth brother has such an opportunity this time is enough to prove that he is a person with great fortune. Rong Yuan was elated. Hearing the Crown Prince's words, he hurriedly nodded and said, "That's right. According to the rules, fourth brother should move to Taiji Palace in the future." What? Rong Li was caught off guard by his father's words. He raised his head in astonishment and asked, "Father, don't you plan to let fourth brother move out and live elsewhere?" Over the years, other than the Crown Prince of the Eastern Palace, which adult prince could stay in the palace? A faint sense of danger rose in the Crown Prince's heart. The great Emperor shook his head. Fourth brother has obtained the inheritance of the Demon Emperor's bloodline. Naturally, he is different from others. Someone, pass on our decree. Hearing Father King's excited voice, Rong Li silently shut his mouth and lowered his eyes. He secretly clenched his fists and forcefully tightened his palms. Rong Li only withdrew his fingers when he felt a slight prickling pain. Chapter 2008. Rong Li only retracted his finger when he felt a slight stab of pain. Everyone said that inheritances were good, but they didn't know that Duan Yu enjoyed an extraordinary amount of pain when he received this inheritance. When he was in extreme pain, Duan Yu's fingers trembled as he wanted to take out a bottle of medicinal liquid from his inner world to replenish his energy. However, he soon discovered that he couldn't do anything else. Right now, even a strand of his hair probably didn't belong to him anymore. Meanwhile, the Emperor outside cheerfully said, "Old Fourth has only moved into the palace for a few days, so there shouldn't be too many things in the original South Chow Hall. Come over and move him to Taiji Palace first. Remember, everything must be of the best quality." "Yes." Crown Prince Rong Li followed beside his father and said with a smile, "If fourth brother knew that father treated him so well, he would definitely be very happy." How could he not be happy? Taiji Palace was second only to the Eastern Palace. Father was starting to value fourth brother. Previously, he didn't see father treating that son of his mistress very well after returning for so many days. Today's trip to the Imperial Ancestral Temple unearthed his potential, so father probably had some expectations for this son of his mistress. The Crown Prince of Zhongzhou turned his face away and tried his best to calm his emotions. He put on a face as bright as the moon and said, "According to Elder, fourth brother probably still needs to enter closed-door cultivation for many days. How about this son first accompany father back to the palace?" "All right." Zhongzhou's emperor nodded. Since they were waiting here, they might as well return to the palace first. Moreover, They didn't know how long Fourth would be in closed-door cultivation in the Imperial Ancestral Temple, so there was no use in waiting. With this in mind, Zhangzhou's emperor turned to instruct the elder, "Send people to guard the entrance of the Imperial Ancestral Temple. Don't let anyone sneak in and disturb Fourth's cultivation." "Yes, Your Majesty." The section break of the Imperial Ancestral Temple. It was already 10 o'clock at night. The Academy ranking competition to determine the top 30 was in full swing. Arbor was half leaning on Emolien's arm, so bored that he was about to fall asleep. Since the end of the battle with number 18, they had been sitting on the bench here for almost a day. "Might as well go back to sleep," Miss Chow muttered unhappily. "Sigh, I wonder how long the competition will last?" The instructors of the 6 prefectures' first-rate schools were quite willful. With just one sentence, everyone would accompany them and burn the midnight oil. Emolien reached out and stroked her head. "Jojo, if you're tired, you can sleep for a while." It seemed that the competition had nothing to do with them. There probably wasn't any team that didn't have eyes that would point out their top academy to the stage and decide the outcome of the battle. Arbor nodded. He rested his head on Emolien's arm and closed his eyes. He really did fall asleep. In the middle of the night, a loud roar woke her up. Arbor opened her eyes in a daze and looked at the brightly lit Shanghua Gladiator Arena. She helplessly rolled her eyes and said, "It's not over yet? Actually, it's not impossible to decide the top 30 tomorrow. Why is it so urgent to go to Brinset Island?" Arbor raised her hand and yawned. She leaned her head on Emolien's body and adjusted her posture. Shuntian Prefecture's Celestial Light Academy challenges the top academy. Suddenly, a shout fell into everyone's ears. Chapter 2009. This was like eating an iced watermelon on a summer day. Everyone suddenly felt their eyes brighten. "Holy shit, someone actually came to challenge us." The little fatty jumped up excitedly. "Go, go, 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 go. Let's go to the arena." Sitting here was really not fun at all. It wasn't easy for the Dawn Academy to be so happy to challenge them. Only a fool wouldn't go. Arbor rubbed her eyes, but her small hand was gently pulled down by Emolien. "Then I'm going." The little guy stood up shakily and followed the crowd. Just as he took a step forward, he heard a young referee on the arena call out awkwardly, "Wrong, wrong. The Dawn Academy isn't challenging the top academies. The Dawn Academy just said that they are challenging Starlight Academy." Bai Xia and the other two hurriedly stood up and walked towards the arena with a few seniors. When they passed by Arbor's group, they looked at them speechlessly. The little fatty was even more speechless. He slumped into his seat and said, "Crazy." They were blindly excited for half a day, but it turned out that the other party wasn't going to challenge them. "What's the overall ranking of our academy now? I don't even know how they calculate the points. How can Jojo only be ranked 7th in the individual rankings?" "Exactly. I'm even suspecting that there's something fishy about the way they calculate the points." Arbor couldn't be bothered to care about how they calculated the points. She only had one goal, which was to go to Brinset Island, go to Chochio, and rob a large amount of spirit energy. At that time, whether or not those 3 pitiful spirit realms could continue to exist for a long time would depend on her mood. After sitting there for another 2 hours, the main referee, Elder Hong, finally personally walked onto the arena and said to everyone with a smile, "After everyone's non-stop efforts, the 30 teams participating in the finals have finally been decided. Elder Hong, let's take a day off for the finals and continue the day after tomorrow." A Moonlight Academy student couldn't help but shout. He really couldn't take it anymore. After so many consecutive days of competition, today was still the kind of free selection. Their Moonlight Academy was really unlucky. They had been selected for as many as 3 rounds, and no one knew how they managed to survive the last round. Those bastards, bullying the weak and fearing the strong. They only knew how to find trouble with their Moonlight Academy. Why didn't they go and compete with the top academies? Elder Hong smiled good-naturedly and said, "Don't worry, the mentors have already considered this point. We'll give everyone a day off tomorrow. The day after tomorrow, I'll let all of you participate in the final competition in high spirits, Elder Hong said with a smile. The final competition this time is different from the previous competitions. Elder Hong stretched out his hand and waved, causing a piece of paper that was filled with the rules of the final competition to appear in his hand, and then he lightly shook it before it appeared before everyone. After a discussion among the top 10 academies of the 6 prefectures, we've decided to let everyone participate in a grand final competition. Everyone was speechless. Looks like we still have to thank you. There are 3 stages in this round's final round. First, test his cultivation base. Secondly, we will test your mystic sense or spiritual sense. Thirdly, this is the most important event. The competition will release all kinds of birds in the sky above the arena. You will need to use your mystic sense to control them. Chapter 2010. The competition is very simple. The person who obtains the most birds will win the final round. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. Zhou Danjin slapped his thigh and stood up, howling, "Everyone, isn't this strange competition a bit too much of a joke?" Some of the instructors from the other schools all agreed. "Joke, this is way too much of a joke." In the past, the victor was determined by strength, but this year, Instructor Chao Dan from the Sunlight Academy also shook his head. "I've never heard of or seen such a competition before. What's the point of testing cultivation and consciousness? Isn't this just empty talk? Some people with lower cultivation bases and spiritual senses may not necessarily be unable to defeat others with their own strength, right? We're purely testing cultivation and consciousness this time." An instructor from the Dawn Academy said sternly, "We can't borrow any external power. Isn't this a true demonstration of our own strength?" Aba turned her head in amusement and glanced at Zhou Danjin. "Instructor, your crow's beak hit the nail on the head." The instructors at the top of the 6 prefectures were indeed starting to feel restless. It was a pity that no one of her age could compare to her in terms of cultivation and consciousness. Aba shook her head. She didn't know if she was pitying the instructors of the Dawn Academy for being unable to do anything to her in the end, or if she was laughing at their stupidity. The first step of the final round is to test cultivation. Instructor Chao Dan said exasperatedly, "What's the use of just testing cultivation? There are many people whose cultivation and strength aren't on the same level. Then how can we? Where is the person who killed my son?" A sudden roar interrupted Chao Dan's ramblings. Everyone looked up in shock and saw a hale and hearty old man leading 40 or so spirit masters of the 7th level of the spirit realm into the air above the arena. The old man's face was slightly twisted as his gaze swept up and down the arena. "Where are the people from the top schools? Hurry up and come out to meet your deaths." Aba was a bit startled and stared blankly for a moment. She couldn't help but ask in a low voice, "Who is this old man looking for?" Qi Xianxian and the others were speechless. It turned out that after this little guy killed Zhao Li, he completely forgot about this person. It should be Zhao Li's father. Mata couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth. "Jojo, don't you remember that Zhao Li from Flying Flower Academy, the one who ambushed us from behind?" With such a vivid description, Aba immediately remembered. He nodded and said, "So it's him. What was going on? After killing a young one, the old one actually came knocking on his door?" Prince Emo reached out and held her little hand. Aba turned and winked at him, telling him not to worry. Then, he left his seat and walked towards Zhao Li's father. "You must be Zhao Li's father." Zhao Li's father coldly glared at the little girl in front of him. He was so angry that his teeth itched. The little girl's calm and composed expression was really eye-catching. He couldn't wait to pounce on the girl in front of him and tear her to shreds. Then, he would grind her bones and scatter her ashes to dispel the hatred in his heart. Zhao Li was his precious only son. "You're here for revenge?" Aba hooked her little finger at Zhao Li's father expressionlessly. Come. Your son will have company on the road to the Yellow Springs. All the teachers and students were speechless. Ignorant child, you've gone too far. The sixth watch ended. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.